Star Trek. The original show only ran for 3 years, but it created such a strong fan base that by 2008, it had spawned 4 spin-offs and 10 movies, of varying quality. I count myself a Star Trek fan, even though I'm running at about 50% for liking the movies and TV shows. Nevertheless, the popularity of Star Trek had waned. Enterprise was cancelled, and Star Trek Nemesis was the lowest grossing movie of the series. So Paramount rebooted the franchise and hired a guy who doesn't even like Star Trek to direct it.
Now, when you went into this project, were you thinking like, all right, Star Trek is kind of this, holy grail, kind of a don't fuck with it thing?
No, because I was never a fan, so I went into it feeling like,
I could do whatever I want.
Well, I thought,
And they got Orci and Kurtzman to write the script. This duo also brought us The Island, Eagle Eye, and Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Yeah. I'll get this out of the way up front. This movie is fun. And funny. The cast was great, and the effects were top-notch. I didn't even mind the whole timeline being rebooted. So with what did I have a problem? Let's find out! The movie opens with a Federation vessel encountering an enormous ship that immediately starts attacking and disabling them. The bad guys then demand the captain come over for a chat, and then the captain leaves the first officer, George Kirk, in charge. The captain arrives, and the bad guy for the film, Nero, asks if he knows Ambassador Spock. He doesn't, so Nero kills him with a spear. Then Nero attacks him again, and they evacuate the ship, and George Kirk sacrifices himself to save the crew and his newborn son. Already, I have a problem. The effects look good. I mean, I think so. Can they keep the camera on anything for more than 1 second? Sure, the ship is firing, but what it is firing, or at what, or for how long, or its effectiveness cannot be determined by any exterior effect shot. And why ask the captain to come over? Couldn't he have just asked from the view screen? And why kill him without trying to get anything more out of him? The reason he did this is simple. His stupid face tattoos, needlessly dark lighting, ominous stature, and the surprise attack didn't say he was evil enough for the dumb audience. This leads to a problem with the whole timeline reboot. Everything from this point in history, 30 years or so before the original Star Trek and afterwards, is now different. Okay, but anything coming from the original timeline, like old Spock, are the same, right? So I have to ask, are these supposed to be Romulans? And what kind of ship are these Romulans in anyway? Well, according to the film, it's a mining ship. That explains why it's so big. It would have to have a lot of space to store whatever it's mining. That does not explain why it's so heavily armed. Phasers and missiles, and it's so heavily armored, apparently it takes no damage from a Federation ship firing at it, nor getting rammed at the end of the fight. And did the Federation not send anyone out to look for them? Did they not even ask the Romulans why one of their ships destroyed a Starfleet vessel? And, to skip ahead for a minute, where did Nero and his mining ship from hell go after this? The movie says the next time they're seen is more than 20 years later. What were they doing all this time other than sitting around waiting for Spock? How did they even know when Spock would arrive? Or where, for that matter? The Romulan ship left their timeline in the Romulus system, but that's not where they reappeared. Where was I? Oh yeah, and next in the movie, we see Spock and Kirk as kids. You know what? I have no problems here. Showing Kirk as the same brash hothead with no father figure works fine, and showing Spock dealing with being half human was good too. Then Spock decides to join Starfleet, and Captain Pike convinces Kirk to enlist and become an officer. Okay, that second part doesn't make any sense. You can't enlist and become an officer, at least not in today's military. Maybe things are different in the future, I don't know. Nero's shown capturing Spock, but I already complained about that. Back to Kirk, he's taking the Kobayashi Maru test. This was set up in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan as an unwinnable scenario where the cadet learns of the consequences of command. Now it's about fear or something. That's not my problem though. My problem is that it's so obvious that he's cheating. They even show the screens rebooting, like the audience is too dumb to figure it out otherwise. Oh, and I also have a problem that McCoy is a bridge officer. Kirk is getting reprimanded for this by Tyler Perry. At least he's not in drag. Anyway, they're interrupted by reports of an attack on Vulcan. Without knowing the severity of the problem, they send everyone in Starfleet to help their pointy-eared friends. They even send cadets, for some reason. Kirk is on suspension, so he can't go, but McCoy finds a way to sneak him aboard, where he figures out whoever is attacking Vulcan is the same villain that killed his father. I'm not sure how the vague description of a lightning storm in space would make Kirk so certain, but he is, and he convinces the captain to go to Red Alert. They drop out of work to see that every Starfleet ship has been destroyed by the mining ship from hell. The mining ship is drilling a hole in Vulcan to destroy the planet using something called red matter. What is red matter? Who knows? I suggest red matter is a product of MacGuffin Industries. They make products to cover up plot holes. Also, this mining drill blocks transporters and communications. Somehow. They also state several times in the film that they've raised the shields, but you never see anything ever hit the shields. What do shields do in this version of Star Trek? The first shot fired always hits the hull. Did the writers just know Star Trek's characters would say that line, but had no idea what it meant? Anyway, Nero demands that Captain Pike come over to his ship. On the way to the shuttle, he leaves Spock in charge and makes Kirk first officer. Wow, can he do that? I mean, isn't there supposed to be a chain of command? Isn't there a second officer somewhere? Kirk's a stowaway at this point. He's on suspension. He hasn't even graduated yet. He went from ensign to first officer just on captain's whim. And why did Nero want Pike to come over anyway? He later asks him for the codes to Earth's defensive grid. He wouldn't need it. He's beaten 40-to-1 odds already. It shouldn't matter what defenses they have. Nero's ship is the friggin' Death Star. Well, Kirk and Sulu, yeah, they send the helmsman, Sulu, go down to the drill to disable it, and Spock tries to rescue his mother. Kirk succeeds, but it doesn't make any difference. Nero still uses a single drop of red matter to implode the planet. And Spock manages to save all of the Vulcan elders, including his father, but not his mother. They show Nero interrogating Pike, and he reveals a little of what's going on. This is a revenge plot. Again. Just like Star Trek The Wrath of Khan, and Star Trek Insurrection, and Star Trek Nemesis. And he says he saw Romulus break in half, from a star going nova. Well, no you didn't, liar. I'll bet you about that in a minute. The Enterprise crew is shown discussing the situation, and Spock deduces that Nero is from the future. Not sure how he figured that out. Just because you've never seen a technology before doesn't mean time travel is the answer. At least it wasn't magic. A bigger question here is, why not contact Starfleet now? They say they can't, but they never say why they can't. Earlier, it was the drill that blocked communications. Now, maybe they just ran out of minutes on their phone. JJ does look a bit like that guy from the old Verizon ads. Kirk disagrees with Spock's plan, so Spock has him arrested and thrown in the brig. Nah, that'd make a little more sense. Instead, he sends him in an escape pod that lands on a hostile frozen planet 9 miles from the nearest Federation outpost. This is so out of character for Spock to just maroon him here. Well, Kirk brought a coat, I guess, and he gets chased by a thingy until he falls into a cave where Spock, old Spock, Leonard Nimoy Spock, is marooned here as well. What luck! This is the most far-fetched point in the movie thus far. I guess it was the will of the Force or something. Well, old Spock explains what's going on, and none of it makes sense. Here's my summary. The Romulan star was going to go nova, something that does not happen suddenly, by the way, and rather than evacuate to any of the other dozens of planets in the Romulan Empire, they rely on Starfleet to solve their problem. The solution is for Spock to fly a one-of-a-kind, one-seat prototype ship and use red matter to open a black hole to suck up the excess explosion? What the fuck are they talking about? Okay, first of all, Spock says that the star going nova threatened the galaxy. How? Our galaxy, the Milky Way, has 300 billion stars, and just one going nova is going to cause a problem for the galaxy? They only explored about 30% of our galaxy in the pre-reboot time. Okay, I guess he could have been talking about the political and military ramifications of the death of Romulus, but he didn't say that. Second, open a black hole in a solar system? Okay, let's say this is not the most impossible thing ever and would not destroy everything in the Romulus system. Even then, are they so sure they can get the exact right amount? Any changes in the local star would have effects on the local system. Radiation levels, heat, and even the changing of orbits if the mass is affected. Speaking of that, black holes are created by mass. A little drop of anything, no matter if it's red matter, wouldn't make anything into a black hole unless it was a star. Anyway, Spock says that the black hole he opened is what's transported him and Nero 130 years to the past. Because black holes, wormholes, and time travel holes are all the same thing. Plot holes. And why send Ambassador Spock on this mission in the first place? Isn't there some kind of expert in whatever field of science covers this sort of bullshit? And where is this ice planet anyway? It's close enough to see Vulcan, suggesting it's a satellite of Vulcan. And since Vulcan is apparently now gone, it wouldn't have anything keeping it there. It would just fly off in its current direction until it got trapped by something else with enough gravity to attract it. And long before that happened, everything on this moon or whatever would be dead. They go to the nearby Starfleet outpost where they meet Montgomery Scott. Scotty! Wow! What luck he's also on this tiny ice planet for no reason. This place seems pretty big for only 2 people. Anyway, Spock tells Scotty that he will invent transwarp beaming. Really? Well, when the hell did that happen? This is a rebooted timeline, so most of the things that are changed I really can't complain about. However, this is from the original timeline, and it was never mentioned before in all of Star Trek. There are dozens, no, hundreds of things they could have referenced that actually happened, but now they're just telling us about technologies that would literally change the nature of space travel. Well, they're going to use this transwarp beaming to get aboard the Enterprise. This whole thing is more than a bit of a stretch. But the big question is, how do they know where the Enterprise is? This seems like something you'd have to have down to the exact micrometer, and the Enterprise is traveling at least 8 times the speed of light. And space is really, really big. Well, Scotty and Kirk get aboard the Enterprise, and Kirk pisses off Spock to get him to relinquish command. They decide to use the same transwarp beaming to get aboard Nero's ship, and they send the new captain, Kirk, and the new first officer, Spock, on the mission. Whatever. Nero gets to Earth and deploys his ultimate weapon. No, not that. Not that. Not that either. No, that's Babylon 5. Oh, just stop it. The drill. And there's no Starfleet vessels in orbit. Did they really send everything to Vulcan? Kirk and Spock beam aboard the enemy vessel. Scotty can transport them aboard a ship at warp, but can't figure out the difference between a cargo bay and some occupied section filled with Romulans, even on a ship as large as the mining ship from hell. They manage to shoot everyone, and Spock gets in the silly spinning ship full of red matter and flies it at the bad guys. They're beamed back at the last minute, and the red matter destroys Nero's ship. The same red matter that imploded a planet in just a few seconds from a drop. Now a whole vat of it explodes, and it takes long enough for the bad guy to taunt them one last time before dying. So the movie wraps up with a conversation between new and old Spock. I used to like this part, until Anthony Cumia of O&A ruined it for me. Every time Nimoy says any word with an S in it, I keep thinking that he's talking over his dentures.
Of a friendship that will define you both in ways you cannot yet realize.
The movie ends and blah blah blah. Look, there's a lot of good stuff in this movie, but the plot doesn't make any sense at all. If Nero and the mining crew traveled back in time, why not just warn Romulus of the star going nova, thus avoiding the problem? I mean, it's not like you couldn't prove your story. And hell, you may not even be able to stop it. But with the tech from the mining ship, Romulus would be over 130 years ahead of the other races. They may be able to launch an attack right now, since both the Klingon and Federation fleets did almost no damage. They have a 130-year jump in technology. They can just take over Earth, or better yet, Vulcan. On top of being the most badass mining ship ever seen, they also have a whole vat of the most dangerous substance in the universe. Alright, I don't care if you like this movie or not. I'm Franco, and this is my own damned opinion.